If you really want to find the starting point for, well, for almost everything we take for granted in our modern world, you have to travel back in time, way back, to a stretch of land nestled between two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. This is the story of Mesopotamia. And honestly, it's where our story truly begins.
It's one of those huge, epic questions, isn't it? But if you start to trace back some of humanity's biggest and most fundamental ideas, the very concepts that shape how we live our lives every single day, you'll find that so many of those paths lead right back to this one incredibly fertile region.
I mean, just take a look at this list for a second. We're talking about writing itself, the actual concept of a city, the first written laws, the very idea of an empire. Oh, and yeah, the wheel. These aren't just, interesting historical footnotes. They are the absolute foundational building blocks of civilization, and they all got their start right here.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Section 1, the world's first cities. We're going to dive into what was probably the most profound shift in human history, how we went from living in scattered little farming villages to creating these massive, organized, sprawling urban giants.
Now, this didn't happen overnight, of course. The whole process got started way back, around 6500 BCE. In what we call the Ubaid Period, people figured out irrigation, a total game changer, and started building the very first temples. That set the stage for the next phase, the Uruk Period, which is where we see the world's first true city, Uruk, pop into existence, complete with these giant temple structures called ziggurats. And by 2900 BCE, you're in the early dynastic period, where you've got multiple powerful city-states, like and Lagash, all vying for power. So once you have cities, you have complexity. A whole new set of problems, right? How on earth do you keep track of food, taxes, and trade for tens of thousands of people? The answer they came up with in Uruk, well, it changed everything. Cuneiform. And this wasn't just about accounting. This was the birth of history itself. For the very first time, human thoughts, stories, and knowledge could be permanently etched into clay and passed down through the ages. All right, on to our next big idea. Section 2, building the first empire. With all these powerful cities growing and competing, there was constant warfare. And all that conflict led one incredibly ambitious ruler to ask a pretty revolutionary question. What if one person could just rule them all? That ruler's name was Sargon of Akkad, and what he did was so much more than just conquer his neighbors. He created an entirely new way to think about power. Sargon is the one who built the world's very first empire, a huge, multi-ethnic, multicultural state, all held together by a powerful army and a central government. It was an idea that had never existed before. The sheer ambition of this new empire was just staggering. And if you thought Sargon was ambitious, you have to hear about his grandson, Naram-Sin. He took the idea of power to a whole other level. He wasn't satisfied with being a king chosen by the gods, no. He declared that he was a living god. This was a completely radical move, and it shows you just how much power these new imperial rulers were starting to accumulate. But like a lot of the great early empires, the Akkadian one eventually fell. And in its wake, the Sumerians made a big comeback. They created a super organized state, basically run by an army of bureaucrats who left behind, get this, thousands of clay tablets detailing everything. Under kings like Namu, they gave us one of the very first law codes we know of. These tablets show them tracking absolutely everything, from taxes paid to the hours people worked. Okay, Section 3, lawgivers and warlords. The next major chapter in Mesopotamian history is really defined by this epic rivalry. It's a clash of titans between two dominant powers, Babylon and Assyria, and they had completely different ideas about how to rule. So, down in the south, you've got Babylon, rising to power under its most famous king, Hammurabi. And his greatest legacy was this incredible attempt to create a stable, just society through the power of law. He had this comprehensive legal code, 282 distinct laws, carved into a massive stone monument for everyone in the city to see. Now, we've all heard this one, right? An eye for an eye. And yeah, to our modern ears, it sounds incredibly harsh. But you have to understand, for its time, it was a revolutionary idea. It established a principle that justice should be proportional, and it tried to apply a single standard of law across an entire empire. It was an idea that would echo through legal systems for thousands of years to come. And while Babylon was building its power on law and diplomacy, its rivals to the north, the Assyrians, were doing things differently. They built their power on pure, unmatched military supremacy. The Assyrians were, for all intents and purposes, the world's first military superpower, and they were legendary for their brutal, efficient campaigns and their mastery of siege warfare. Two totally different models of power, slugging it out for control. So let's move on to Section 4, Babylon's final glory. After the terrifying Assyrian Empire finally collapsed under its own weight, Babylon got to have one last, spectacular moment in the sun, as the last truly great native Mesopotamian empire. And the king who led this final blaze of glory was the legendary Nebuchadnezzar II. This guy did not think small. He transformed Babylon into the most magnificent, awe-inspiring city in the ancient world. He rebuilt its colossal ziggurat and, so the stories go, constructed the legendary Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. He was also a fearsome conqueror, famous for capturing the city of Jerusalem. But here's the thing about golden ages. They rarely last, and this one was tragically brief. In the year 539 BCE, a new power emerged from the east, the Persians, led by Cyrus the Great. They swept in, conquered Babylon, and just like that, thousands of years of Mesopotamian independence came to a sudden end. An entire chapter of human history was over. So is that the end of the story? The empires are gone, the cities are in ruins? Well, not quite. And that brings us to our final section, a legacy in clay. Because even though these civilizations are long gone, their ideas are anything but. In fact, they fundamentally shaped the world we all live in today. I mean, their legacy is everywhere, hiding in plain sight. The very idea of living in a city, the invention of writing, the concept of written laws, these are massive. But it gets even more specific. Their detailed astronomical observations lead the groundwork for modern science. And, the simple act of checking the time on your phone, the reason we have 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour is because of their base 60 counting system. Think about that. It really leaves you with a pretty fascinating question to chew on. When you dig down beneath all the layers of history, you find that so many of the fundamental operating systems of our own civilization were programmed right here, in Mesopotamia. How many of the rules we live by, the systems we rely on, and even the stories we tell ourselves actually began thousands of years ago, in the land between 2 rivers.